Bears make surprising move. This has serious implications on the team going forward. What does it mean this week and moving on down the season? Welcome to Bears Digest, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dylan Guinzy. Thank you for joining me once again. Just ran a new report on the watch time from subscribers. We are now at 91.7% of watchers are not subscribed, so be sure to hit that bell and that notification button on so you're up to date on news, rumors, breaking information like we're talking about here today, and everything Bears. We will be here to talk about it every single day, so thank you guys for doing that. Also, just wanted to point out, if you look down below, we are hiring over at Digest Media, so if you guys are interested in writing, creating videos, being a content creator overall, just like myself, we do have openings for a lot of different markets, teams, everything that you can think of. So if you are interested, go down below and apply there to be a part of our team. So overall, guys, we have a new signing here today. It is very surprising. Something I did not expect the Bears to make. Something, a specific move that Ryan Poles would usually not make as well. But it could help out our secondary. So we're going to talk about that and talk about what implications that has on Kyler Gordon and other players in this secondary going forward. So without further ado, we will get right on into it. CJ Gardner-Johnson. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has been signed to the Bears' active roster. We had one spot left as of yesterday. It was 52. So signing CJ Gardner-Johnson is now making that the full 53. Gardner-Johnson now reunites with Bears' Dennis Allen, who coached him in New Orleans way back when. So this is an interesting signing for the Bears. Obviously, they needed defensive back help in the room. He is a safety, so this is why we kind of didn't discuss him yesterday in the cornerbacks available. But we'll get into this here in a little bit. He does have that hybrid versatility and is not going to be playing safety for us. So stay tuned on what that looks like there. Let me know down below what you guys think of this move. Obviously, it's a little bit of a risky one, considering he has been cut from a couple of different teams. He is a, sort of a locker room problem, a lot of people would say. I don't know how I feel about it, considering this team is kind of reeling as of late. We do have penalty issues, and he's obviously going to probably play a part in that because he is one of those enforcer-type players, somebody that's going to talk a lot of smack, try to get under people's skins. But overall, I think that's something that the Bears really haven't had. We get a lot of soft players a lot of the times, which isn't always the worst thing in the world if guys aren't talking and things like that. But CJ is one of those guys that you'd want to have on your side rather than the opposing side. So we'll get into that, but let me know what you guys think down below of this move, of course. This is kind of the background on CJ Gardner-Johnson. Played with the Saints and Dennis Allen for 3 years there at the start of his career. Had a pretty good overall output. Had 4 or 5 total picks in the 3 years with Dennis Allen. He kind of played that box nickel spot, which is what he's probably going to play with us. We're going to get into his snap count totals and experience of those positions here pretty soon. But then went into Philadelphia, had a decent year, or great year actually, both of those years. Had 6 picks both times he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that just goes to show if he is supported and has guys around him and guys that can rally him and keep him together, he can be a really good, serviceable player. Went to Detroit for a short stint. Ben Johnson was also there, so that's the other familiarity piece of this. But won the Super Bowl there with the Philadelphia Eagles. And quite honestly, he was a really good piece to that team there last year. After that, he went to the Texans for a brief stint. They did cut him just a few weeks ago. I believe it was probably a month ago now. And he was just kind of an issue in the locker room there. So that's one risk that you're taking here, signing him to the Bears active roster, is, if things go awry, that could be an issue. But you have to trust Dennis Allen, who's had experience with him, Ben Johnson, who doesn't take, any BS on the team. And then, of course, Al Harris is a really good defensive backs guy. I think he can keep everybody in line. He's shown that with Tyreek Stevenson, who had some, kind of mental issues before. So I think overall, this is a good move. It's risky. I don't know how I feel about it overall, but it's a good move if you're just looking to improve your defensive back room. He is obviously better than Nick McLeod at that spot. So obviously a serviceable move there that you'll take anytime that you can get it there. guys like that in terms of their play aren't usually available at this point in the season. So just dating back to this, this was Javon Wims. If you guys were watching in 2020, this is who he punched, was CJ Gardner-Johnson. Again, like I said before, he's a guy that gets into other people's heads. He likes to chirp wide receivers. He will get some penalties here and there, but overall, he kind of gets underneath people's skins. You see this in hockey a lot where every team has an enforcer, right? Somebody that's going to chirp the other players, finish fights when they need to, and get underneath people's skin. And this is a player that does that, and the Bears have never really had that, at least for quite some time. That's not somebody that George McCaskey, the owner, he doesn't really sign off on that usually, and Poles definitely hasn't in the past either. So this screams to me like a Ben Johnson sort of move, and Dennis Allen and everybody together on the staff. So this is kind of his snap counts when he was in New Orleans with Dennis Allen, and with Dennis Allen being the defensive coordinator and head coach. He played primarily in the slot. So 477 snaps in the slot in 21, which is the most recent time he worked with Dennis Allen, 622 in 2020, 268 in 2019. The box as well, he played a little bit. And then safety and outside corner just a smidge. But overall, slot. So filling in for Kyler Gordon. This tells me that hopefully Tyreek Stevenson is back, and then it's going to be Nahshon Wright on the other side. So those are your two outside spots. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson is going to fill in the slot position, slot corner, kind of nickel corner spot. So I think that's a good spot for him. He's obviously got that experience. He knows Dennis Allen's scheme. They signed him right to the active roster, so that means he's probably going to play here this week, I would imagine, and kind of pick right back up where he left off in Dennis Allen's scheme. I would assume he knows it rather well there. So what does that mean for Kyler Gordon overall? I don't really know. I don't know if you would make this signing with this type of risk if it's just going to be for 4 weeks and then he's going to be moved back to the practice squad or cut or whatever. So hopefully this doesn't mean that Kyler Gordon is on IR or out longer than what they're saying, but this kind of points in that direction. Ben said the other day that they hope to have him back for that Steelers game, which would be after that IR stint. So after that 4 weeks, he'd come back and be able to play against the Steelers. But just this move, the way that they're kind of committing to Gardner-Johnson at the nickel spot, I would imagine that they think that it could last longer for Kyler Gordon, be a little bit longer term of an injury. So I hope that's not the case. But overall, I think, you wouldn't make this risky of a move if he's not going to be here for at least a little while. So that's kind of what I think in terms of this move and Gardner-Johnson starting for the Bears. But obviously, again, just to point out, he is way better than Nick McLeod. He was horrific in last game. At the nickel spot, we had to put him in there against the Ravens, and he just got busted all game. So what this tells me is they threw Nick McLeod out there. They didn't have many options, and then they were like, yeah, that's not going to happen ever again. So they signed Gardner-Johnson to fill into that spot. And no matter what you say about Gardner-Johnson, if it's a bad move, if he's a head case, whatever, he is light years better than Nick McLeod. So this team just got better. I hope it works out. I hope that Kyler Gordon's not out too long because obviously Kyler Gordon is the better player than Gardner-Johnson. But I think this is a good move, a surprise nonetheless, but a good move to help out this team and to hopefully at least try to compete here down the stretch when we are riddled with injuries on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. So overall, guys, Gardner-Johnson has been signed to the active roster. We're going to see him this weekend against the Bengals. Maybe he can get in a little tizzy with Jamar Chase, get into his head a little bit. Maybe we can get Jamar Chase ejected because I think that's the only way we can really stop him. So we'll see here this week. But a good move nonetheless to improve this roster and this secondary. So we will be up to date on all things as we approach this weekend. The first injury report's coming out here today. We're going to have the rest of them throughout the week. So hopefully some good news there. And Austin Booker back among some other guys. So we'll see on that point. But, of course, thank you guys for joining Bears Digest once again. As always, bear down.